very much for coming to what is the second TRIL lecture. Relatively new innovation for us, and one we'll definitely be doing more of. It's great to see so many of you. It's a great pleasure to introduce and to have with us Andrew Monk, Professor Andrew Monk, today from the University of York. Andrew is a near 35-year veteran of York University, the psychology department. Very strong interest in HCI, human-computer interaction, and a former chair of the British HCI group between 1997 and 2001. Very well published and cited in the areas of assistive technology, of HCI, of design, and so forth. Andrew became sort of known to us, I suppose, as a community within TRIL, primarily through Joe Wharton, who was one of his postgraduates that we lured over here and never let go back to York, and now works very closely in the TRIL Centre with Brian Lawler. So Andrew made us that kind gift, and often in return cites some of Joe's work on pervasive sort of computing ideas for people suffering from dementia. I don't know whether Andrew's going to cover some of that today, but alongside his, I suppose, more formal academic teaching and research, he's also been very sort of active in promulgating ideas about the use of technology to enable independent living, and set up the CUHTec Centre, the Centre for Usable Home Technology, which, amongst other things, brings academics and industry and policymakers together on a regular basis to inform them of some of the issues in this space. But also has this wonderful sort of porter cabin. When you walk through the doors, you're into an environment where much of the fittings and furniture have some form of computing in them, and it gives his students an environment in which they can test out all manner of pervasive computing ideas. And I'm hoping we're going to hear some about that too. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to Andrew. Before I do that, I'll just remind you that there'll be some tea and coffee and things slightly stronger downstairs afterwards, so we'd love you to join us. And just in advance of starting, to remind you, maybe turn your mobile phones off, put them to silent. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Andrew. He's going to talk about older people's needs and how technology can help. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much, Simon. Can everybody hear me okay? Oh, I haven't turned on the sound. Just to turn on the sound. See if it makes it better or worse. Can you hear me better now? Yes. Can you hear us talk? Okay, well that's good. I'll leave it on anyway. Okay, well, what I want to talk about is more about older people's needs, and what using technology to help older people has told us about older people's needs. Before I go any further, I should acknowledge the large number of people that have contributed to the research I'm going to talk about today. You'll notice at the bottom I've put CUHTec members. So as Simon was saying, we have a membership. We have CUHTec, which CUHTec does research. It's a kind of umbrella for all the people at York who do work on home technologies. But we also have a kind of dissemination part. We run courses for social service departments that do telecare, also for housing associations and so on, that are actually in the business of supporting older people with technology. And the first thing I want to talk about really is what I've learned from those CUHTec members. So this is the overview. I'm going to do a couple of things about what we've learned from telecare. So that's technology that's out there now, and without which some 2 million people in the UK wouldn't be living independently in their own homes. I'm going to talk about the needs that this has revealed, and I'm also going to talk about what technology shouldn't do, or things that you have to avoid, which have come out of this experience. And then at the end, I'm going to just talk a bit more briefly, I think, about my vision of the future, where technology is going to go in terms of meeting older people's needs in the future. So what is telecare? I'm not quite sure what the position in Ireland is, but I suspect that lots of people have these things. So this is a panic button, pendant, they're called. And if I press it, I'm hoping there isn't an active telecare system anywhere in the building. If I pressed it, if I fell over, I didn't feel very well, I could press it, and it would wirelessly communicate with a care phone, a unit, and that care phone would then dial using ordinary telephone technology to a call center. One of the really powerful features of these systems is that they have very good speakerphone on it. So even if I was lying on the floor in the next room, I could have a conversation with the person at the call center, explain what the problem was, and so on. And very often, the call center can sort something out for them, or they might. Many of these telecare services have response units, so there'll be some people in a van who can come around and pick you up, help you up, avoid a trip to the hospital, which is very expensive, and which nobody wants to do anyway. You know very well if you go to hospital, you never kind of come out again. So that's part of it's quite popular as well. Or it might put you in contact with a relative, or in the last resort, emergency services. So what's happened in the last few years in the UK is that the manufacturers have expanded these systems by adding lots more wireless sensors, things that can raise alarms for you. And I'm going to go through what some of these are and the needs that they demonstrate in a moment. But what happened was that the UK government gave not a massive amount of money, but a reasonable amount of money by formula, depending on the number of older people you had, to local authorities to basically expand their community alarm services, just the pendant services, into these multi-sensor things. And that's what we've been doing courses on and talking to the leaders in the UK who are providing these services and all the inventive, clever ways that they've managed to find business models to make this technology actually do something useful. Come in if... A more recent development in telecare has been activity monitoring. Actually, activity monitoring doesn't sound very nice, so they tend to call it lifestyle reassurance, which is much, much nicer. A lot of these, most of these systems have PIRs, little burglar alarm detectors, which you would have in any room normally. So they quite often put those in with the telecare system, and then when you go out, you can press a button, which simultaneously tells the call center you've gone out, and turns the whole unit into a burglar alarm. Very nice, quite a nice way of selling it. But it has another quite useful. If you put those PIRs in, you've also got an activity monitoring system. The new Tunstall unit, Tunstall are the kind of world leaders in this stuff, the call center can just flick a switch and it turns itself into an activity monitor. So it records the activity in all the rooms. And what I've got here is a record obtained in that kind of way. It's a 24-hour record, so it starts at 1 o'clock in the morning, goes through to midnight. And what we've got is the activity in lounge, kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, and also a little gizmo that measures water use. So here we are, 4 o'clock in the morning, the purple band. Something happens in the house. It involves activity in the bedroom, then the bathroom, and then water use. Any ideas what this might be? So it doesn't take a lot of artificial intelligence to actually look at these kind of records and infer all sorts of things about people's behavior. And I know social service departments that are now banding with the health trusts to use this sort of thing, actually counting the number of times you go to the lavatory in the night and using that to detect urinary tract infections, which is a big problem for older people. So, and I think that raises a lot of interesting questions, and I'll come back to that, but I just thought I'd tell you that. Okay, so what are these services to clients that the technology can provide? Working with these people who are pictured there, who are the kind of come from the leading organisations in the UK that are inventing all these new ways of using this kind of equipment, they and I put together this kind of list of things that you can do for people. And this was really kind of an antidote to the normal way that the manufacturers present this stuff, which is as technology. We'll give you an enuresis sensor. We'll give you a something sensor. And what we want to do is just step back a little bit and abstract and say, well, what actually are we doing for people with these sensors and the service that goes behind it? And there are like 3 groups there, and I'll just go through them very quickly. So you can do things for mobility, wheelchairs, hoists and stuff. We're all familiar with that. Remote control is another important category. So if we were very severely disabled, we might need a suck and blow pipe to control our environment. More commonplace, the most useful remote control that everybody has is a door entry system. So it allows you to remotely control your front door without going down to it. The other thing that we can do is for people who've got cognitive problems is prompting. So here's a pill dispenser. There's any number of those. Here's a thing for finding your keys and things like that. This here is not a very good picture of a prompting system for helping people know which knob controls which hob on a stove. And this is a little sort of diversion now. So have we got any psychologists in the audience? Well, 1 or 2 anyway. So this is a little diversion for psychologists. It's an experiment. Psychologists like experiments. So this is the problem that Joe chose to address in this experiment. Okay, here's the normal kind of arrangement for a hob. You've got the different plates. You've got 4 knobs. And then you've got these kind of international signals for which hob, which knob can train. And we all have trouble those. People with dementia find them very difficult. And we were interested in that. How could we make it easier for people with dementia? How could we prompt people with dementia to do that, to deal with that? And Joe's idea, prompted by quite a lot of psychological theory, actually, cognitive theory of what goes in the commonest kinds of dementia, was to give very strong visual salience to the mapping between the knobs. So what happens, I'm not sure where you got this stuff from. It's a sort of you stole it from some club somewhere or something, wasn't it? It's for decorating clubs. Yeah, it's a nightclub thing. So it's this kind of fluorescent wire you could lay around there, and there's a different colour for each hob. And if you put a saucepan on there, on that one, then this flashes, and they both flash until you turn it on, and then they go solid. It's completely faked. He was doing it all behind his back with buttons. So we thought that's the best way of doing it. We were predicting that. But the thing about that is it's extremely novel, and we wanted to know whether this novelty could be a problem for people with dementia. So what we actually had 4 different systems that the people with dementia used, and they were actually all people who attended a day centre. And one of the things that they did at this day centre, the helper used to do cooking tasks basically to entertain them. And so what Joe and he did was to develop a little cooking task, which at various critical points involved putting a saucepan down and saying, okay, can you turn that on for me? But of course the helper could help as much or as little with the rest of the task they had. So it's a very naturalistic experiment, and everybody on different days tried these different things 4 times. So that's the original. This is a common trick OT, occupational therapists use, which is to stick labels on, top right, top left, and so on. That's a explicit verbal prompt. There's Joe's wonderful flashing lights. And just to see whether they got any idea what we'd asked them to do at all, we had when we covered up all